Hi, I'm Tom Stevenson and welcome to Construction Project Management Tips. Today we're going to be looking at the roles and responsibilities of the three key main players on a construction project and some of the other interrelated roles that other players play in the process. So let's start. We'll start with the owner-client. Owner-client has something that they want to do on this project. They've decided based on business needs that they need to expand or they need to construct a building. If it's a college facility, maybe they've decided that their old facility isn't up to snuff, so they want to build a new facility and move into that. So there's a bunch of things that they would look into to make sure that these requirements are what they exactly need. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But they, in essence, are the owner-client that the other parties are doing work for. And so the next party that they usually will look to under traditional format, and that's the other thing, there's different formats, different contracts that are developed. You know, we have lump sum contracts, we have design build contracts, we have integrated project delivery contracts. We have public-private partnership contracts. There's an array of different contracts that construction utilizes. But the most common is still the design, bid, build. And that's in components. Designing it, inviting people to bid on it, and then constructing the project. So usually the next person or company that owner-client is going to contract with, it's going to be an architect or engineering consultant. We often just refer to them as consultants, but they could be an architect or they could be an engineer. There is a distinct difference. If you hire an architect, you're usually hiring the architect to design for your specific needs for the space that you're after. So they're really designing for the aesthetic appeal of the building and the end use of the building. Architects are not typically designing for the structural elements of commercial buildings. They will hire an engineer to do that for them, or an engineering consultant, or a variety, as you'll see in a few minutes, of engineering consultants to perform that work. As well, very often, especially in larger projects, the owner-client will have the consultant, the architectural firm, then oversee the work and ensure that what's been designed and what's been contracted is actually what's going to be delivered upon as well. And the architect engineering consultant will also put together the drawings, the specifications, and bid documents and invite qualified contractors to bid on the project. Through that process, there will be a contractor that will be selected. We often call them the general contractor. It might not be that name if it was a construction management contract. Basically, you're hiring a construction management firm to oversee the work that is being done and contracting with the various subcontractors. But we'll go with a lump sum contract. We're going to traditionally hire a general contractor. Now that connection, as I said, that dashed line means the contract, one contract is between the owner and the architectural firm, and the other contract is between the GC, yet the architect consultant is overseeing the work in the sense they're making sure that the work is being done to the contract requirements, to satisfy the contract requirements. They are also certifying typically progress draws. Progress draws are when the general contractor puts a billing in to say we've done this much work and it's now complete. The architect consultant is looking at that work and checking it to make sure that the value of the work that's being done, has been done, matches essentially the progress draw amount. In other words, the contractor is not trying to draw out more money ahead of time. So there's a number of functions that the consultants play in this role on behalf of the owner, but there is no contract between the consultants and the GC under traditional lump sum or design bid build contract. Designed by the architect consultant and bid on by the GC who won this particular contract, who now there is a contract between these two parties. The owner client also may have hired a bunch of other people for this process. Maybe preliminary wise, they hired a space planning consultant to give them a really good sense of what their existing space is. I'm thinking like a university or a college facility, and what kind of spatial needs that they require, so that they have a good idea of the square footage, the number of classrooms, for example, labs, etc., that they need to do. And there would be a lot of consultation between the end users and the space planning consultant to arrive at that data, which later on would be provided to the architectural consultant. It could also be done through the architectural consultant as well, depending on what their capabilities and capacities are. There's also a commissioning agent, third-party commissioning agent, that is usually hired by the owner-client to ensure that what the GC is actually doing as far as the building systems go and the building automation systems goes, is that it's working the way it was designed. So there's a whole bunch of checks and balance that third-party commissioning agent will do in making sure that that actually occurs. There may be other people that the owner-client is hiring, like for furnishings and equipment that might be installed separately. So there are those aspects and roles that the owner may play during the process. The architect engineering consultant, as I said, well, if they're the architect, then they're going to have to hire a structural engineer, electrical engineer. Maybe there's going to be some zoning requirements that they're going to have changed. There might be a zoning consultant required. Maybe the zoning consultant's going to hire somebody that's going to do a traffic study, as an example. An environmental study may have to be done through another consultant that's hired by the architect, mechanical consultant. So again, there could be a lot of separate consultants that the main architect engineer consultant is hiring if they don't have them on their own staff. Some of the larger architectural firms have that. Beyond that, now we've got the general contractor, and these drawings and images on this mind map that I have here are really kind of just short abbreviated. As I said, there can be a lot more clouds, if you will, that would be corresponding with the different key players, the owner, the architect, the GC. But look at under the GC, we've got trade partner, trade partner, trade partner. We got vendor supplier, vendor supplier. We could multiply these by probably 30 and come up with a more realistic number, or more, depending on the project size. And a trade partner would be like your electrical subcontractor, your plumbing subcontractor, mechanical subcontractor. I'm trying to use trade partner because it also signifies it's a more collaborative role and less of a subservient role in traditional terminology. So trade partner is probably a better term. Electrical trade partner, plumbing trade partner, mechanical trade partner, drywall trade partner. You can go on and on and on with the various trade partners. As well, perhaps the GC self-performs some of the work, so they may be doing a certain amount of the work themselves. That means if you hear the term self-perform, they take that role on. Perhaps it's the reinforced concrete, the forming and pouring of the reinforced concrete. Some GCs will do that on their own. Some GCs in big markets, though, they'll subcontract most of the work out, 90% plus of it, and leaving very little that they actually self-perform, other than filler roles where they have some carpenters and laborers on staff to fill the gaps and do the in-between work. Vendor suppliers. Now the GC might determine that they're going to purchase certain large expensive items directly from the supplier to make cost savings. After all, a trade partner is going to mark up anything that they provide because they're taking certain risk and responsibility for those items. The trade partner themselves may decide that they need another trade partner, so they'll hire another trade partner under them. A plumbing subcontractor might hire a drain subcontractor, etc. And of course, each trade partner will have a multitude of vendors themselves. So they'll have a multitude of their own vendors. You're buying plumbing supplies, electrical supplies, and so on. So you can start to see how this starts out with three major parties, but then there's a lot of other businesses that are involved, from material suppliers to trade partners to consultants to planning consultants and commissioning agents. So there's an array that needs to be coordinated, and that's of course the role of the GC, is to coordinate all of these trade partners under this umbrella. It's the role of the architect and consultant to find who is a suitable GC to be able to do the work in a bidding process when we're talking about traditional design bid build. And they will require a number of their own consultants. It is a very complex aspect, and so to do it well, we really have to build strong relationships in the construction industry. There needs to be a strong, positive relationship between the owner and the GC, positive relationships between the owner and architect, and between the architect, consultant, and GC. An area of mutual respect, if you will help to move the projects forward in a much more engaging and collaborative process. That's not always been the case in traditional construction. There's lots of war stories out there where there have been adversarial relationships and litigation, but the overall goal is always to have a good collaborative relationship so that you're providing value to the owner and client while the contractor is being profitable and the consultant is being profitable too. So these are the roles and responsibilities at a high level that takes place with the construction projects typically. So I'm Tom Stevenson, Professor of Construction Project Management. I hope this has given you a good sort of introduction to the different roles. I'll be putting up another one pretty soon on a mind map of the different fields of work, from pre-construction to construction to project closeout. I've done it previously, but I think I'm going to add a few little twists to it on the upcoming one. I'm Tom Stevenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and if you haven't already subscribed, please help support the community by clicking the subscribe button right below, and also click notifications. Feel free to leave a comment or question and maybe some ideas for future videos, and I'll be happy to look into it. Bye for now.